Welcome to Coleman Report Live. I'm Bob Coleman. We're talking Main Street and the small business lender who helps it grow. Sarah Briscoe, Equifax, thank you so much for joining us. We've had you in the past. I love your stats. Be sure and say hello to Bill for us. Lance Sexton is in the house. Here. Let's start right off with Sarah. What's going on in small business lending delinquencies, which is near and dear to all of our heart. But maybe I should set it up. Why don't you define what you do? I mean, you guys are great on something called the Small Business Lending Index. Tell me what that is, and then we'll go to point two.
Sure. So I'm on the analytics side at Equifax. I've been at Equifax for 6 years, looking at all of our contributed small business data from lenders like yourselves. So the lending indices measure delinquency levels. They measure originations levels across the U.S., across states, industries, monthly, back to as far as 2005 or 2006, depending on the index. So we have a huge amount of data, huge amount of context and information to help predict what's going to happen in the future.
And what is going to happen?
Get the crystal ball. It's not the happiest fairy tale that's ever been told. We are predicting that default rates are going to increase in the end of 2022 and 2023. Lending, which is what we're looking at here, you can look at the far right-hand side. This is non-PPP lending, so you can see a big drop in 2020. That's all the other lending. So we are sitting at levels that are below 2021. There was a lot of activity, a lot of economic activity in 2021. And right now, with all the inflation and the interest rate increases, we're seeing lending down, and we're not really expecting origination levels to increase substantially anytime soon, given the continued efforts of the Fed to tamp down that inflation.
Well, Sarah, let me ask you some questions. Number one, how do you guys define a small business?
It's any business that has less than $1 million of debt in the database at any given time. So if a business grows and they become a huge business, they'll drop out of the index.
Interesting. Very interesting. And what type of data do you include? What type of loans do you include in your index?
It's all types, secured, unsecured. It could be leases as well as loans. Really any small business financial activity. No trade debt, only financial type lease loans.
Okay, very good. Great. In your base year is the year 100. Excuse me, the year 2005 where we started at 100, and you can see how deep the recession was. Now you're saying there's clouds on the horizon. You don't anticipate 2009, 2010 numbers, do you?
No, because where we're at now, we're actually sitting in a decent place. Delinquency rates themselves on their own are not that high. So they're increasing, but the default rates are starting from a low point. The delinquency rates are starting from a low point. And lending activity, especially in 2021, was very high.
Joseph, go to
for
the
many.
slide. I want to focus on that. Wow. Okay, we'll go back. You have a lot of great data. By the way, her data is in the dashboard. Feel free to download that. Sarah, is this data that you can get on your website, or is this your data that you have to pay for? Just what did you give us?
The stats are free. You can look at these trends and by industry and all that. Yeah, they're on the Equifax Small Business Insights website.
Okay, yeah, highly encourage you to go to their site, see what's happening. Okay, what's this chart tell us?
These are delinquency rates from 2005 until today. So like I said earlier, you could see that low point in 2021, early 2022, where we saw really, really low delinquency rates. This is 31 to 90 days past due. So it's an early indicator, but we've seen this data to actually predict future default rates. So when this goes up, later default rates will go up. And then we've also found it to actually predict a recession and GDP change as well. So we're starting from a low level. It is increasing. Yes, go ahead.
When are you predicting the recession to hit, and where do you think the line will end up on small business loan delinquencies?
We're looking at more like 2023, and we're looking at delinquency rates potentially similar to 2020.
Okay.
Some industries are different than others, so it's very industry dependent. And we do have projections that give you by industry our predicted default rates for 2023. So some of them, will not be as bad as others. In particular,
I want to get
a lot of.
Yeah. Sarah, I appreciate, I love how you give direct answers to direct questions. Everyone else, we have tap dance. Well, it could be here. Lance, you want to weigh in on her chart and how that impacts lenders?
I think that the thing as SBA lenders that we have to look at the end of Sarah's chart, it's taken a turn upward. And, this group has heard me preach over and over. Interest rates are up more than 50% from the beginning of the year. All of our small business customers' payment amounts are up, which is going to create some stress. And the Fed, Sarah and I were talking about it before we came on, the Fed's talking about another 75 basis points. So I do agree that 2023 is probably when we'll start seeing the most stress. And it's not... Obviously, go back and look at 2009 and 2010.
Yeah,
we're not going there.
Good.
But I think the chart is something that should tell you, get your servicing team ready, hone your servicing and liquidation skills, and just be ready for a different environment for a couple of years.
Joseph, can you bring up the industry delinquencies? I want to take a look at that chart.
Sorry, give me a sec, guys.
Do you know what slide it is, Sarah? I think we passed it. I think it's earlier, Joseph.
Yeah, it was a colored line chart. There you go.
Oh, one previous one.
Got it. Sorry.
There you go.
There you
okay,
go.
What have we got here, Sarah?
So this is the same 31 to 90 days past due delinquency rates over time, but by industry. And they're high-level industries, but what we see here is the big spike, pandemic spike, and then rapid improvement in delinquency rate. And then on the far right is today. The blue line is transportation, which is where we're seeing the biggest movement. Wholesale trade as well. We're seeing inventories are up, sales are starting to wane. Sales are down. So actually the ratio of inventory to sales is starting to change. So there's a lot more inventory out there than there was, which can be good if we can move the inventory. So that's where we're seeing the most rapid change, is that transportation industry is pretty much straight up in delinquency rates.
Well,
Lance, I was going to say, Lance, what does this tell you, and how does that impact our SBA credit box?
Well, it tells you that there are still great opportunities for SBA lending, but you need to be aware of the areas of business that are trending downward, if I want, and maybe upwards in terms of defaults, but there's still going to be opportunities. It's great to hear that there's more inventory, but I have several friends and people that work in retail, and they'll all tell you that things are not what they were like in 2020. That sales have kind of flattened, expenses are rising. So it's certainly, a good business operator, a good entrepreneur is going to survive through inflation, through increased interest rates, but it's more important than ever to find skilled, seasoned, knowledgeable operators to lend money to.
Absolutely.
Right.
Joseph, go to the state slide. That one I always like. There we go. What does this tell us, Sarah?
So we tend to see the highest delinquency rates in the southeast, but what's really been interesting is the increase that we've seen in the Midwest. So if you look at Illinois, Missouri, those are states that traditionally had somewhat lower, at least in the past few years, delinquency rates that are starting to rise, as well as some of the western states. So you look at like Nevada, that's another one that has popped up at a higher rate than some of the others. The north is generally looking good though. There's a lot of agriculture. Agriculture is looking fine. It's much more flat than other business types. So those are the couple of places that we've seen the biggest changes. Some of those western areas and then the Midwest.
Lance, what is happening to Arkansas?
Arkansas and Georgia are not looking real bright, Bob. In fact, they are. No,
my friends in Arkansas, Lance.
No, they are looking pretty bright on the scale, Bob. It's the brightest color on the map. I don't know how to explain it, Bob. Arkansas has some drivers that should, keep but small business delinquency rates don't necessarily correlate with our major industry drivers that are in Northwest Arkansas as an example. But Bob, I have no explanation.
Very good. That's fine.
Arkansas is not doing so great.
Go ahead, Sarah.
It's a lot of that transportation, and
That's
then
true.
there's some.
Oh, Walmart. There you go.
Well, and
Yeah.
the largest trucking company in the world is in Arkansas, J.B. Hunt, and there are many, many other trucking companies and transportation companies that are surrounding it. But I wish Arkansas was a green. How's that?
What do you attribute the problems in transportation? Gas, fuel,
Mostly.
There's a few. Unfortunately, there's a few. Yeah, prices, labor shortages, and issues. Yeah, issues with labor. And then we've seen some indications that warehouses have too much inventory. They have, in certain industries. Like there's still some places where we need things, and we still have supply chain issues. But like Amazon, they're closing some of the warehouses that they opened. So the way that things are moving are not the same as what they were. And usually that's one of the first indicators that the supply and demand is out of whack. And then you add onto it all these other challenges, like, how do you price a truck loan when you're not sure what the value of that truck is going to be? It's very challenging in that industry.
Very good. I want to go back to your recession predictions. 2023, how bad and how long does your data show you?
If we could, Joseph, go all the way towards the end to the default projection.
Oh yeah.
I don't think it's going to be super long.
Keep on going, Joseph.
Keep going. We're looking at hopefully a relatively short recession.
Okay. Define short. 6 months, less than a year?
Less than a year in an ideal world. Yeah.
Joseph, keep going.
Obviously,
help Joseph out on the slide. What slide do we want here?
Go all the way to the end.
All the way to the end, Joseph.
There you go.
Okay, thank you.
These are the actual historical default rates, 18, 19, 20, 21, and then projected for the rest of 22 and 2023. So we're looking at, for the most part, an increase for all industries up to around 2.4% from what's going to be around 2% for 2022, which is up from 21, and it's close to on par with 18, 19 for 2022. So it's up a little bit, but it's not crazy. 23, we're looking at a larger increase, and then probably early 24 will also be in a similar vein, possibly a little bit higher than this. So it is higher than 2019. Some of the industries are a little more on par with what we would have seen in 2020 in some of those initial pandemic spikes in delinquency, but not exactly the same industries. Like accommodation, food services was super impacted by the pandemic, restaurants, hotels, and travel. There's not going to be the same exact industry-specific impact. So yeah, everybody will increase a little bit, but some will increase more than others. So transportation, we're looking at to have a larger increase. Potentially manufacturing, have a little bit of an increase there. Healthcare has seen a lot of increases. They are expected to be above 2018 and 2019 levels as well. And then education also we've seen a lot of challenges there. Lower enrollments and funding is significantly dropping, and so we have a lot of more challenges.
It looks like I'm glancing through this. Everything's increasing. Any particular industry you'd like where it's decreasing or staying flat?
Information has looked a lot better. So if you look at information,
Wow,
there's a lot of like
2020, yeah.
Yeah. But they've showed a lot of improvement and a really high growth in lending activity. So that's like your telecommunications or your online internet kind of type business. So I'm seeing a lot of more positivity in that industry for sure.
So sum it up for us, Sarah. What advice do you give the lenders out there as they're underwriting and looking for small business loans?
I would say these are this is the time. These are when the warning signs start to pop up, but things have not, entered an actual recession yet. So now is the time to start to prepare for what you want to do and how you're going to handle a possible increase in stress and increase in delinquencies and recoveries and things like that. So this is a preparation time, and if preparation doesn't happen, it would not be we don't want to be surprised.
Lance, are you suggesting we constrict credit boxes? What do we do?
Well, I think that we need to be smart about the particular NAICS codes. I've always felt that way, Bob. We need to look at, for instance, this data is very valuable. The 10-year default rate from SBA is very valuable, but we need to look at and make sure we're lending in industry categories that, every one of these is increasing, but we certainly don't want to jump on the bandwagon with a vertical market in the one that's increasing the highest. So it's time to be smart, be aware. And like I always say, Bob, take servicing and liquidation training.
Very good. Sarah, this is great. I really appreciate your time and the fact that you're sharing all of your data with us. Please, let's make sure it's not. How long has it been since we had you on last? A year? Let's
About.
let's make sure. Yeah, let's get you back a lot sooner than that. Sarah, thank you so much from Equifax. We have her contact information, Joseph, I believe. If you need, just send us an email. We'll be happy to do that. Lance, thank you very much for your time. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today for Coleman Report Live and for supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time.
Have a great afternoon.
Thank you for joining us today for today's episode. If you like today's content, hit that subscribe button to subscribe to our channel and click that bell icon to get notified about our latest videos. Thank you again for joining us today and for supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time. Catch you next time.